Microdose, yeah. Microdose, 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 dose. Microdose, microdose, dose. Microdose, microdose, dose.
What's good, y'all? Kush Hayes here, coming to you, episode 79 of the Microdose. Busy July, busy August too. We just coming off the 22nd anniversary of Kush Hayes' 21st birthday. That was with the folks at Barely Functional Gamers. We want to just thank them again for opening their house like that, letting us come in, play some Rock Band on the Xbox 360. Hell of a night. 5 hours of it if you're open to it. No Robin Seto tonight. Normally she's with us, but she's got the night off. We got a busy slate ahead of us, so you'll see her again next week. But Iron Dragon TV, they just announced their lineup. They just announced dates. I know I've been telling you guys it's August the 14th. I don't know why that was a thing. Ignore that. August 21st, all the way into September 4th, you can experience the Iron Dragon Action Fest, and that's at IDTV. actionfest.com. One of those films, the director of it, he's here, he's joining me. Justin Powell, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here, Kush.
Hey, thanks for coming out, man. Sorry for that long intro, but you directed a movie, you wrote and directed a movie. It's called Falling Sparrow. It's one of the selections for this year's Iron Dragon Action Fest. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's start off. How old are you?
I'm 22 years old.
Wow. All right, and you're already making movies. So where does this start?
Where did making movies start? Or where?
Yes, sir.
Well, I grew up in Beijing, China, and I always grew up loving martial arts films and wuxia and Chinese martial arts fantasy films. And I guess if it grew out of anything, it was that. I became interested in writing and storytelling in all its forms in high school, I think. And I really gravitated towards film just because I was able to meet some people that sort of pushed me in that direction, career-wise. And all throughout high school, for most of high school, I kind of knew that that's what I wanted to do. Then I came to Austin, and that was where I really sort of focused things in, where I was like, okay, I want to make action films. I want to make martial arts films. I want to make films like the kinds that I would watch as a kid growing up, as well as now.
Right. How long have you been back in Texas?
I've been living in Texas for quite a while now. I moved to Texas in 2015. Yeah, so I've been here for a long time. I finished high school here, and went to college here too. So I've been in Texas for a while now, yeah.
Now, who's pushing you in the direction of writing and film? Does someone give you a camera? Are you just using your cell phone? Who's influencing you in this?
Well, I guess for people in my personal life that really pushed me to that, one would be a cousin of mine, Paul Massonet, who also went into film, and he was someone that I hung out with a lot growing up, and he was a big influence on me in a lot of ways, and I guess him going into film sort of pushed me to do it. Too, especially when I got interested in writing. Other than that, I made a lot of friends in high school. I met a lot of people who are also interested in storytelling, writing, those sorts of things. And when we moved towards film, in a big way, it was a sort of a collective thing. So,
did you go to a School of the Arts type program, or?
Not necessarily. When I was in Beijing, I went to an international school, and I was able to take film classes, and that's sort of what made me decide that I really wanted to do film. And back then I was using a phone and I didn't exactly have many resources, but I think that that's sort of what really set me on the path, doing it there and having those people pushing me.
Okay. Who's a director that influenced you, that you look up to? I know there's dozens of them, but who's that one that you kind of emulate?
I would say that if I could pick two, I would probably say Ang Lee. At the top of the list. I'm a huge admirer of him. Another would be Zhang Yimou, especially regarding his martial arts films. Yeah.
And I'm not familiar with that second name. Tell us about him a little bit.
Zhang Yimou, he's probably directed a few movies that that y'all have heard of. He directed The Great Wall starring Matt Damon a couple years ago, but in terms of his influence on me, a lot of his earlier martial arts films, 2002's Hero in particular,
Oh, dude.
And House of Flying Daggers.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all movies that he made that really influenced me, and I try to emulate as much as I can, or I would like to emulate someday if possible.
Mm-hmm. Who's a martial artist you're watching right now? Like, I put together a list of like people I grew up watching and some of the new boys today, but some of the new boys today have actually been around 20, 25 years, like Michael Jai White and Scott Adkins. Who do you go like, oh man, that guy's bad fucking ass?
I mean, I've always been a huge admirer of Scott Adkins. Since you just mentioned him, I always thought he was great, fantastic performer. And I'm not sure if there's like a fight performer alive that understands that craft better than him, at least on camera. Someone who shows up on camera.
Dig.
Of course, I also have a lot of love in my heart for the greats, you know, Jet Li, Jackie Chan. But I guess I have a special place in my heart for Chow Yun-fat. He's probably my favorite fight performer or martial arts actor I think I've ever of all time at this point. But I have a lot of love in my heart for all of them. And also, if we're talking about in the West, Keanu Reeves, of course. I have a lot of love in my heart for him as well. But yeah, John Z, Michelle Yeoh, Chow Yun-fat would probably be like my holy trinity.
What's your favorite Chow Yun-fat film?
It's hard. I would have to say probably, I mean, my favorite film of all time is Crouching Tiger and Dragon.
Dig.
But a very close second place for Chow Yun-fat would probably be Hard Boiled. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. I would end up seeing Hard Boiled once upon a time on video cassette back in the mid to late 90s. I didn't really know much about it. In fact, like the title is like Quentin Tarantino says it's awesome. I'm like, well, this guy's got interesting taste, so sure, why not? I loved it, but you know who really loved it was my 81-year-old grandmother at the time. She was just like, whoa, this is a lot exciting. You know, grandma was a trip like that.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, funnily enough, Quentin Tarantino was the one that brought Hero to the States too. So it was his taste that brought that over as well. So I think a lot of martial arts fans owe a lot to Quentin Tarantino's taste, I think. I mean, one thing I like to say is that every actor who has jumped through the air with two guns owes a lot to Chow Yun-fat. And John Woo. Because that was his signature move as well as Chow Yun-fat's for a while. Yeah.
I want to recommend The Last Hurrah for Chivalry, which is John Woo's sophomore film. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite movies. It's like right up there with Ghostbusters. Anytime I get a new TV, that's the movie I put on to test it out. It's a fantastic film. It's 1978, I want to say. If you're not familiar with that, you should absolutely check it out. If you've seen it, you should still check it out tonight. Anyways.
I haven't seen that one. I'll definitely put it on my list.
Some old dynasty stuff. Lots of swords, very shallow backgrounds, you know, prop trees, fun stuff like that. Dig it. What about you, man? Any martial arts in your history here?
Yeah, I'm a martial artist myself. That's one of the things that pushed me towards martial arts films. I've been doing martial arts for like most of my life in some form or another. As of right now, and for the past 4 years or so, my main style, the style that I promote and that I train the most, would be a Chinese martial art called Yin style Bagua Zhang, or 8 trigrams palm. But I've had an experience in lots of different martial arts. I did Taekwondo for a number of years. I did fencing and HEMA for a while as well. And I have a little bit of MMA experience, stuff like that too. But yeah, if I had to pick one love in my life in martial arts, it's definitely Yin style Bagua Zhang.
Are you going to do any stunt choreography or any stunts yourself in your features?
Yeah, I think I'm a stunt coordinator myself when I'm not a writer-director. And I did do a little bit of help with the stunt work and the coordination for Falling Sparrow. Actually, I did a little bit of choreography for that. And I definitely consider that to be one of the most fun things to work on in a movie, is fight choreography and coordinating the action. At any opportunity I had to do that, I always think it's just a great time. It's definitely something I want to get a lot better at too.
You just mentioned it. Falling Sparrow, 15 minutes, part of the Iron Dragon Action Fest film festival this year. Producers Nikki Blacklock. Who finds who in this situation?
Oh, well, me and Nikki, we've known each other for a number of years now. We met at when we were going to school at the University of Texas. We met there and we worked on a lot of projects together in the past, either for each other or for other people. And Falling Sparrow was sort of the culmination of me bugging Nikki for years about how I wanted to do like a wuxia inspired like martial arts fantasy film type thing. And I've been bugging about her about that for months, if not years. And eventually I finally got her to read the script, and then we sort of set out to actually make it. But yeah, I guess I don't know if I would say if either one of us found the other. We definitely just sort of found each other.
Oh, so you guys were just tied already. You're the one who's saying, Nikki, we got to do this, or she's the one who's saying like, yo, this script is fire, son. You got to make this now. Let me help you.
I would say it was definitely me that was bugging Nikki about it, because within our group of people, I'm definitely the one that's into the martial arts films. I'm the one that's into the action films. That was known to be my thing in our little filmmaking group of friends. And that's also one of the things I really appreciated about Nikki as a producer, is that she was willing to sort of dive into this genre that she didn't really know all that much about, that she didn't really have a ton of experience with, and just sort of trust that I knew what I was doing and that I knew what I wanted. That's one of the things I actually appreciated about Nikki a lot. But yeah, that was definitely something that I was pushing for. It was definitely my stubbornness that led to us making a movie like this, I think.
Closed mouth does not get fed. So good for you for being stubborn, and great for her for just taking a chance on something she's not familiar with or not comfortable in. Let's tell some people, what's the movie about?
So Falling Sparrow is a wuxia-inspired martial arts film about a girl's desire for revenge for her mother and how that sort of overpowers the love that she was raised with. It's it's a story meant to showcase the martial skills of our performers, but also the story emphasizes how things like legacies of hate leads to cycles of violence. And it's really about a girl trying to take her mother's sword back from her uncle.
Yeah, man. It's 15 glorious minutes. It's a short film. But it's the best case scenario, because after it's done, you're like, I want more. I want to know more. I would like to know more of the history between the aunt and the uncle. I want to know more about Falling Sparrows, how she grows up. I want to know who those people are in the garage. Little things like that. Is there a possibility this could be expanded upon someday?
Well, I did write a draft for a TV pilot that features some of these characters. It's definitely something I would like to revisit in the future, either in the form of more short films or in form of a feature or a series. Because when I was envisioning the story, it was really I didn't really see it as something that I wanted to be more than just a short. All those details just sort of came about because I wanted a density of ideas in the film to make it feel big and make it feel like this was a story that a lot was happening and that there was a lot behind things, even if the audience doesn't necessarily know what. And hopefully that comes through in the final product. Yeah.
I love both the locations in this. The opening location, it's like a frontier setting. Where are we, and what time period are we supposed to be in?
Right. So one of the things that I figured during the writing process was that I wanted the time period to be almost a little bit unclear, but it is set in arguably the modern day. But I wanted it to be a film set in the modern day that doesn't feel like it's set in the modern day. I wanted it to feel as though we were seeing an ancient struggle, an ancient story, or an old story. And that's why I went with this sort of tried and true story of revenge, just because I wanted it to feel old, even though the setting wasn't old. And that part sort of came about from the fact that I didn't want to hide the fact that we shot this in Texas and that we shot this in America. I didn't want to try and sell Texas in a way that it has to be China, or I wanted the audience to come to their own conclusions about where the characters were and why they were there. And yes, the first location was in this sort of woodsy area.
Was that something that already existed, or did you guys have to build that?
It was something that existed, because one of the things I knew is that Texas is a big state that has a lot of areas that look like that. That it has a lot of very beautiful woodsy areas, and there's a lot of country there that can be showcased, especially because this is a film where like one of the background things is a little bit about like artificiality versus nature, if you want to read it that way.
Dig it. Dig it. Where's the garage? I'm guessing it's also in Texas, but is that is that your hangout?
Well, not my hangout necessarily. It was a martial arts studio in Austin, Texas, that the owners were gracious enough to let us shoot at. It was a martial arts studio called the Martial Arts of Austin. We scouted out the location. We thought that it looked like the perfect place for an aging, guilty, old martial arts evil dude to hang out in. We felt like it would be a good place. It felt like a hideout, but it also still felt like kind of a martial arts studio, and that's what we were going for sure. I've always had a love for those kinds of places because I've always kind of held the opinion that the more clean and sleek looking a martial arts studio or school is, then the less I kind of like it.
It's less used. It's all flash. It's all show. There's no result out of it. No, that whole location is lived in, man. Like you've got fight formulas literally on the garage door. It's one of those things where it's like, damn, I wish I had a bigger screen and a clearer resolution. Like I want to see what's written on that door.
Yeah, we left in some Easter eggs for those at the owner's request for that school. A lot of that environmental detail for the school was actually given to us just by the fact that we were shooting in a location that naturally had that stuff there. Same thing with the farm. We wanted there to be this feeling of like there was wildlife and that Sparrow and Jade were sort of living off of the land, but we didn't have to like buy all those chickens or or that goat or whatever. We just had to find the right place, and they just had chickens wandering around there, and that's what I sort of mean when I say Texas just has these locations if you're willing to make them look the way you need to.
We'll talk about your main trio of actors in a second here, but the stunt team, where do you find them? Those friends of yours? They just ran for hires?
Yeah, a lot of them were my friends.
Nice.
Being in the martial arts community of Austin, I tend to know a lot of martial artists. And some of them were very skilled fight performers, and they were gracious enough to help me out with this project. They same as Nikki, they really trusted in me because a lot of them, they were martial arts people, they weren't film people, and they just sort of had the trust that I would make them look good. Our main stunt coordinator, Kaiser Tinyu, he's a professional stunt coordinator that works out of Houston, and I met him through a mutual friend. And in the end, the stunt team ended up being an extremely collaborative effort, just because we had so much martial arts talent on board in the film, both on screen and off screen. Like I said, I did some choreography work for it. A lot of people that were performing did some choreography work for it. Kaiser had a hand in there. And other martial arts friends of me and theirs just sort of showed up to the rehearsal sometimes, and they would just give their 2 cents, because one of the things about the martial arts community is that some people just tag along to things. So it ended up being, and I think that made me a lot more proud of the sequences because they were intensely collaborative and it had like a little bit of everyone in it.
That's what's up. I neglected to write down who the mother was, and Jing, I believe was the character's name.
Yeah. It was Jade, Jing, and Sparrow are the
Jade and Jing. I know. So I have Sparrow's name written down. I'll get to her in a second, but tell me about those two actors who played Jade and Jing.
Right. So Jade was played by Nicole Davis, an actress who was in Austin at the time. Now I believe she's moved out to LA, and she's doing great things out there. She was an incredible talent, and funnily enough, Nicole was the only other member of the cast that wasn't really a martial artist. And that's another case of me being very appreciative of someone trusting me, and trusting that I would be able to make them look good and be able to like portray them as someone who knew martial arts, even though she didn't really. And that wasn't her primary skill of hers. Nicole was a delight to work with. She's an extremely talented actress. Yeah, she always came to me with the right questions, and it was truly a joy to try and build the character of Jade with her. And she was extremely like invested in the project from beginning to end. And she's also a very good friend of mine as well. So we're both very excited for anyone to see the work that she did on this film. And I think she did a fantastic job. And as for Jing was played by Jing Wu, who was actually a martial arts teacher of mine for a time. He's a wushu performer from China, and this was actually, from what I understand, his first film role.
Oh, wow.
And and he's an otherworldly talent when it comes to his martial arts abilities, his wushu, and his fight performance abilities. A lot of the choreography in his fight against Sparrow was done by him. And it was especially like brave of him to do some of the lines. Some like Jing didn't have very many English lines, but the few English lines he did, Jing did them very admirably, I think. That was one of the unique challenges of the film, having to direct Hannah or Sparrow in English and then turning to Jing and having to direct him in Chinese, because I had to speak to Jing in Chinese to direct him. And that was one of the unique challenges of directing this film. Even though this was his first film role and Jing isn't necessarily a film person, he was extremely professional in how he performed on set and how he took direction. And I also think he just did a great job in like bringing that character of Jing across. And luckily, Jing also was very familiar with wuxia tropes and martial arts film tropes too. So it didn't actually take that much talking to him for him to get what I was going for.
He's definitely having fun because he's a formidable presence in that film, to the point where both Jade and Sparrow in their scenes with him, like, they are visibly shook once he went the first time he exits the scene, and then the next time he enters the scene, they're like, "Oh no, it's Jing." Yeah.
And it was really fun to do that because Jing is a really nice guy in real life, very funny guy. So making him look. Yeah, so making him very scary and threatening on film was a lot of fun. And the idea of portraying Jing as this sort of dishonored, aging warrior, especially in the latter, after the time skip, was something I think he had a lot of fun with. And it was something I had a lot of fun bringing that to life with him. Because even though it is like a sort of a common martial arts trope to have this sort of guilty aging warrior, I think Jing definitely put his unique twist on it. And I think Jing is a very naturally charismatic person. And it doesn't take much for him to bring across a certain mood in his performance, which I thought was just great. And I was also extremely impressed with how him and Nicole work together, because they have a whole scene together. And I was really nervous. I wonder how they're going to mesh together with their performances. Are they going to have the history that I need them to have? And I think that they absolutely did. And I think that they both did a really good job, even though it was a pretty stressful set environment, especially since they didn't speak each other's languages very well.
Comes off good. Let's talk about Hannah Ho. Like, where do you find her? Is she just a martial artist? Is she an actress that dabbles in martial arts, vice versa? She's fantastic. And bear in mind, most of the time, she's just emoting with her eyes, because that's the only visible thing. She's masked up her entire performance.
Right. Yeah. That was definitely something, a unique challenge, because when we were casting for Sparrow, I was like, when I decided to write the script with having Sparrow almost never speak until the end, I knew I wanted to have someone who had extremely striking facial expressions and someone who was able to convey a lot of things like hate, sadness, just through their eyes. And
also fear.
Yeah, and fear. And Hannah, to answer your question, she is a martial artist who dabbles in acting more so than the other. Maybe she would disagree with me. I don't know. She was another martial arts friend of mine. And I definitely, to some extent, wrote the character of Sparrow with her in mind. And I didn't really expect her to be willing to play the character. I wrote the character with her in mind, and Hannah was the character in my mind's eye. But I always sort of figured that, okay, she's not that into acting. She probably doesn't have the time to do all the work necessary. But then when I actually mentioned the project to her, she was immediately interested. She totally got what we were going for. And she was like a real trooper, showing up to rehearsals. Even with someone with not that much acting experience at the time, she was able to interact with me as a director on a very close level. And I was extremely impressed with her performance, both in terms of acting and her fight performance. We had to do a lot of fight choreography and previs before shooting, and all of the stunt team and all the performers that showed up for that. It was hours and hours of work. Hopefully that's something that came across on screen. But yeah, Hannah was just fantastic, and she really proved herself a very capable actress in this film. Claire too, who played young Sparrow, because it was kind of challenging because I was like, okay, I need two people who can act with just facial expressions, and one of them has to be a child. And so and also they have to kind of look alike. Claire has to look like she could be a younger version of Hannah. And so we got truly, truly lucky that ended up being the cast that we got. It could not have gone better, in my opinion.
How long did it take to choreograph the scene in the gym?
So we had 3 fight choreography sessions spread out across several months. Each of them was like 5 or 6 hours long. And believe it or not, I wanted a lot more than that. I was really nervous that that wasn't enough time. And funnily enough, even after that, on the day of shooting, we threw out a lot of the stuff that we had planned, and we were just like, let's come up with some new stuff. I don't like this anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Just because you can only plan out so much when you're doing stuff like previs. When you show up on the day, something about the set makes certain things, certain techniques, certain moves not look as good. And then they're like, okay, while we're changing stuff, let's add in some more jumps. Let's change this. And so, as much as I said, I really how much I loved how intensely collaborative it was. Just the amount of time we had did make it so that even with all of that, we were still rushing at the end to try and make sure we had everything down. Because trying to shoot that many elaborate fight scenes like that in just 2 days was extremely difficult. Because if I had my way, I would have wanted 5, 6, 7, 8 days to shoot those fight scenes. But realities of production don't allow that. So through the skill and the talent of the stunt team, that really pulled us through and hopefully helped us make something special.
Dig it. How many days from when you and Nikki shook hands to agree to work on this till it was a locked picture? How many days did you work on this production?
Oh, geez. I believe I sent Nikki the first draft of the script in the summer of 2019. I said, like, hey, that movie I've been bugging you about for God knows how long now. I finished the script, and she replied something like, okay, when are we making it? Let's make it. And I was like, oh, no, you finally, okay. Then we shot the film in February of 2020. So,
wow.
So it was about a good 6 or 7 months before we shot. And also just because things like the fight choreography sessions, we knew we had to take our time and that we couldn't rush this if we wanted to get it done right. And then after we shot, it was another 5 or 6 months before we were done with post-production. Nikki also edited the film, and our production designer, Jackson Lowen, color corrected it. And another great friend of ours, Segan Bretsky, who's just an extremely talented sound designer and sound mixer, did the sound design for it. And
I love hearing the fire crackling in the background of the camp scenes.
Oh yeah, I was super impressed with Segan's work on it. He did a fantastic job. And also our composer, Li Xun, is a family friend of mine who works out of Beijing, China. And that was another case where it was kind of difficult because I was having to give sound design notes in English to Segan and then give composing notes to Li Xun in Chinese. And then the composer and the sound designer didn't speak the same language, and I had to be the intermediary for the two of them. So even in post-production, that was still like a really funny situation to have to be in. But also, those are both two cases where two extremely talented people, Li Xun and Segan, both trusted me enough that we were making something special to do that for us, because Segan is an extremely accomplished sound designer. He's worked on a ton of huge projects, and Li Xun has worked on, and Li Xun been a composer for many, many years in China, and he's worked on huge projects himself. So for both of them to lend their talent to this film was just awesome to me.
Now, I was surprised to hear that you're 22 years old. So the fact you wrote and directed something just so competent, so tight, it's very easy to digest. And actually, when you end up going through a bunch of submissions like I had to, and then you come across something that's like, oh my God, this is a breath of fresh air. But again, getting back to your age, you're 22. I'm so jealous. I wish I'd not only had your direction at that age, but I wish I had your accomplishments on top of that, man. It took a long time for me to find my groove in this weird record called life. But you got something going on, man. You're literally just getting warmed up with this. So what is that movie that's going to come out in a couple of years that's going to make people from then on out go like, oh man, that new JW Powell joint? We got to check that out, man. That comes out Friday, bro. I got tickets right now, yo.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the kind words. But I am writing a feature script right now. And that's sort of what I'm going to be promoting off the back of Falling Sparrow. I'm trying to get that written before the end of the year. I'm also working on several other of my friends' projects as well. But yeah, the feature script I'm writing is hopefully the movie that you're describing. In a few years, maybe if I play my cards right and I make the right friends, then hopefully it can get made. And it's going to be a film that's very much in the same vein as Falling Sparrow. It's also going to be a wuxia-inspired martial arts fantasy film, because I feel like I've sort of found the kind of that with Falling Sparrow, I kind of found the kind of movie I want to make, and it's definitely that.
That's what's up. Justin Wang Powell is the writer and the director of Falling Sparrow. It is one of the official selections of Iron Dragon Action Fest 2021 this year. You can get more information about that at idtvactionfest.com for the dates of August 21st all the way into September 4th. Again, more information at idtvactionfest.com. Justin, is there anything else you want to promote? Instagram, Twitter, a Snapchat, something for the gram?
Yeah, sure. So the film's Instagram handle is @FallingSparrowFilm, and I guess my Instagram handle is @ner507, the letter O, not the 0. And if anyone listening can give either of those a follow, that would be greatly encouraged, especially the films, because that's where all the information about wherever the film may play either soon or in the future, especially including at the Iron Dragon Festival. That's where you're going to find the info about that. So I would definitely encourage everyone to follow @FallingSparrowFilm on Instagram.
That's what's up. Folks,
Sure.
No Kush and Kai in August. Busy month, like I said, but we are going to return sometime in September, and maybe we'll tell you why there was a delay there. Or maybe we won't. It's not everything you need to know. As I told you, idtvactionfest.com. That's August 21st all the way into September 4th. More information at idtvactionfest.com. And then August 25th, the Kick-Ass Movie Podcast, episode number 4. We're bringing in Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer Jameel Hemphill from Sweet Science Cinema. He's going to be talking Undisputed Part 2 with me and director Master Len Kabazinski. That is August 25th, the BosNet family. Justin, thank you so much for being a part of this. For Justin Powell, I've been Kush Hayes. You've been you.
Microdose, 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 yeah, microdose.
From the BosNet family.
Yo, this script is fire, son. You got to make this now. Let me help you.